Are you ready?
Starting now?
Well, now you just messed it up, you knob.
It sounds like to me that our conversation is almost right on spot right now. So
Yeah, it does.
God, this is a good thing we test this shit out, right?
Yeah.
yeah, clearly this is fucking explicit now.
The explicit button. Let me use my finger.
Just to get used
Fucking
to it.
A.
Yeah, fucking A back at you.
It is time for another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And that episode starts now. All right, everyone. Welcome once again to a brand new episode of Sober, Not Mature. And today we have two special guests, the sisters from The Simpsons, joining you. Yeah, both Mike and I have slight colds, and that's the first thing I thought about. Yeah, we had just a brief conversation on the phone before we connected here, and that's the first thing I thought about. Yeah, Marge Simpson's sisters. Do you remember? I didn't even remember their names. Do you?
Selma and Selma and Thelma. I don't know. I'm a little foggy. My head's in a bubble.
So do you want to be? Well, we'll call it Selma. I think you're right, but I don't remember the other one. But all right, whatever. So we're one way or the other. You guys will have to bear with us.
Patty and Selma. So do you want to be Patty or do you want to be Selma?
Let's see. I feel like Patty. I'm going to be Patty today.
All right, I will be Selma.
All right, what's up, Selma?
Not much, Patty.
Yeah, just so you know, your phone's cutting out just a little bit today, but maybe that was you and I just talking over each other. But hey, whatever. It's a professional broadcast, right?
That's right.
All right, so I've actually got some. I made some notes this time, so I don't know if this is professional, but I do have actually some notes from this past week. So
I'm glad somebody's got something because I got nothing.
Well, that's okay. I got you covered on this part. So from Instagram on the side, as far as followers, right now, and I looked at a little bit ago, we've got 311 followers now. So hit that 300 mark, which is awesome. Obviously, everyone that's what? A
crappy band.
Right. You know what? And the funny part is, I thought about that exactly. And okay, so. Little side note here, Mike. Would you consider yourself like a music snob?
Well, as I've told you many times, there's two kinds of music, good and bad, and it's completely subjective.
Right, and that was my whole point. That's what I was leading into. I was going to say that you do describe music in only one way, and it's either good and bad. And I think it was the first year that we were sober. I'm sure it was when 311 happens to be a band that. It's just in the mix of music that I was listening to at the time. I'm pretty much stuck in the, what did you figure, mid to late 90s, maybe mid 2000s as far as my musical taste, and the majority of it alternative rock. And there was a station in Cleveland at the time that was playing. It's almost like no commercials and all alternative rock. So I mean, I was enjoying it, but. When March 11th came around, I had posted on Facebook, and you just ripped me up and something about some mock song about how terrible they were, and I was like, "Damn!" So that certainly wasn't the first and only time that you gave me your opinion on music, but that's probably, we can get into a whole another episode about that. But yeah, so
opinions are like assholes, everybody's got them, and most of them stink.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if anyone wants to save us from the pain of being 311, then you might want to follow us on Instagram. Thank you.
Please, either that or somebody drop off. One of the two.
Yeah, exactly. Either a couple of people drop off or a couple of people add. Combination of both. Don't care. Right. So yeah, I mean that was cool, and we got a couple of messages from people, a little bit of feedback, which I'll get into in a minute.
Cool.
But I mean, that in itself was kind of fun. But I started looking. So the Facebook page went up a little over a week ago, when you, so that's starting to get, everything I post on Instagram is ending up on our Facebook page. So 2 different places there. The full website went up around the same time. And I think when I looked at it yesterday or the day before, we've had like individually, I think 110, 115 like visitors to it, and I don't know, 250 or 60 interactions. So I'm learning more about how to read the analytics on it, but that's nerd talk for you. But the whole point is people are visiting the website, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
And I mean, honestly, so we're, I mean, obviously on Facebook, obviously on Instagram. The majority of the posting I do is on Instagram, but it translates over to Facebook. But the cool part is that anything that anything related to anything we're doing can be accessed through the website, which is simply SoberNotMature.com, and that's got links to everything, to all the pages and all that stuff. Plus, I added, and you probably saw the post, but we are now available as far as a platform base on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, which is obviously a version of Amazon, Google Podcasts, and then 2 smaller ones that I found through the hosting site where we do this. A podcast called, or a company called Castbox, so Castbox, and then Pocket Casts. So I think those 2 people have to be like actually have to join, their community or something like that. But one way or the other, worst case scenario, because I was asked this question, if you don't have any of those available to you, all the episodes are available on the website. So once again, go to the website, right? One-stop shopping, I think is what you said.
I think so. Yep. It's all there.
Yeah, exactly. So other thing that, and I've got a question that came up. I added a Q&A. We can add a Q&A to the end of each episode, and I did that on the last episode. And that's the one I'll get to in a second, because I think it's actually, I think it'd be a good topic for us to talk about in a little bit more detail. But the other thing too is that I don't know if it's going to be this episode, but we're now eligible to have possibly an ad run in the middle of one of our podcasts. We haven't been notified of it yet, but so if you guys hear a pause, and I'll figure out a way to set it up right, going down the road, but it might be a little short spots that'll run in our voices from what I understand, but one way or the other, if you notice that, it's only going to be probably a 30-second interruption or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I posted the other day on Instagram that I mean, I'm floored, by all this. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my expectations for all of this were minimal. I mean, what were your? And I posted this stuff on Instagram, but what were your expectations when we started this? I mean, what did you think we'd be able to do? I don't know.
I have absolutely no expectations.
Well, that's good. Well, yeah. then we've exceeded everything that you wanted and everything that I wanted. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's fun. I mean, we're having a good time and starting to get some reactions, and like I said, it's certainly fun. But honestly, I was really hoping that because Mike didn't feel really good last night. It'd been a long week for both of us, and we obviously, it's Saturday morning, so we decided to record this morning instead of last night. But I thought, and again, back to the music thing, I was going to open, if we did this last night, I was going to open and start singing "Foolin'" by Def Leppard.
Oh God.
I know. That was the reaction I wanted. It was ruined. Okay. So real quick, you've got a joke when it comes to that.
I do.
Now, hang on. Let's take a minute. Well,
what has 9 arms? What? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, set it up like a knock-knock joke like you normally would. So go ahead.
Well, basically, yeah. What has 9 arms and sucks?
I don't know, Mike. What has 9 arms and sucks?
Def Leppard. Where's the rim shot?
Well, hey, okay. So you've got a drum set, right?
Yeah, but it's upstairs. It's not on the floor I'm on right now.
Well, what are you willing to do, I guess, is the main point. So walk upstairs and hit the snare and the cymbal, and we're good.
Nope, not happening.
Well, maybe you can just bring the snare drum down and the cymbal and put it next to the bed. Who knows? Maybe you can use it in other areas too. I don't know.
If I ever get healthy again, that will happen.
Okay, awesome. But yeah, I wanted to thank you. I wanted to set up that joke for you too, because I figured you'd enjoy it. But yeah. So anyhow, couple of other things that happened in the last week, and this story is recovery based. But last Friday, you had texted me about Taylor Hawkins, from
Mm-hmm.
Foo Fighters, and I was going to joke around and say you ruined my night, but I mean you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But just another person, because everything I'm hearing right now, and I mean I'm just repeating what I read, so this is all headline stuff, but
Right.
they found up to 10 substances in his system. He had what they call a heavy heart, what twice as big as what it should be. And I
Right.
mean different things. It could mean from overactivity, but also things like cocaine, and for what I understand, even like depressant or opiate type of drugs can expand all
Mm-hmm.
that. Which again, if anyone's wondering, no, I'm not a medical professional, so I'm just it's just what I'm reading. But I mean, but
I'm not
again,
a doctor, but I play one on the internet.
right? We play one on a podcast. We're doctors,
Right.
but it's just another long line of people that have been lost to addictive substances or
Mm-hmm.
alcohol and drug use, which is, and I'm a huge fan. I mean, you called me a super fan, I think, of the Foo Fighters, and I think that's probably
Mm-hmm.
a good way. I love music, but I really like them. I saw them last summer, and like everyone else that saw them, I mean, I'm glad that I did, because I mean they're amazing, But
Right.
then it made me think about the everyone's got losses, and I've talked to people that have lost people to addiction, and usually when something happens on a celebrity level or a musician level, people are like, man, I wish I could get that type, but why does it have to take a musician to get the word out? Well, it doesn't, but I understand that. So
Right.
an individual in small town USA is no less important than Taylor Hawkins from a multi-million dollar band.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what brings about the conversation. So although tragic, it's not necessarily, what do they always tell us? Anytime these things happen, and you know what they tell us about
Right.
examples.
Right. Yeah. There's no bad examples. There's it's an example. Look for the good in everything. Look for the positive. Look to see what you can learn and take positively away from all situations.
Right. And when you had texted me, I think after saying motherfucker,
I believe shit, but yes.
okay, in my head, I just so shit or yeah. Well,
Yeah.
motherfucker was there someplace. Maybe I didn't text it to
Hmm.
you. But the other thing is that the first thing that you and I thought about was the fact that he had OD back in, from what I read, 2000, 2001, something like that.
Right. Something like that.
So and it's terrible, but you think, well, yeah, probably this, but but the whole thing with that, and it got me thinking about all the people that we've known, that have lost their lives, and
Hmm.
the unfortunate part about this, if you're going to be in recovery, sober around people like us, you're this is going to happen.
Hmm.
It's an unfortunate fact. And do you remember? And I do, but I remember the first person that had died when we were in the Keating Center. But do you remember? I mean, how anyone, or do you remember that first time?
Well, the first one that comes to mind was the guy that drove his truck off a bridge.
Oh shit! Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that was, I think, the first one that I remember anyway. First one that I went, wow, because he couldn't take being sober. Yeah, it was again in a lesson, work this thing right, or because I can't be without substances unless I'm doing what is suggested of me. If I don't work this program and I don't put the substances in me, I'm going to drive off a bridge because I can't take it. I can't just be dry.
right.
So who
Yeah,
are you
that's a. I
thinking
mean,
of?
there was and I think it had to have been. I don't remember his name. I mean, not that it. I'm not saying not that it matters, but it's not important to the story. But
Mm-hmm.
he he had dark hair. He had glasses. He wasn't overweight, but a little bit kind of stocky, and he ended up he had used like on a Friday night or something like that, and he and I were sitting in like the day room, and this had to have been within the first 30 or 60 days. It was really early, and
Mm-hmm.
he told me about it. And I'm like, well, you know what you got to do, because just to back up there, when we were in the Keating Center, people are there. It's not a lockdown facility. It's nothing like that. When we said we were locked down, we just weren't allowed to go out for visits. You know,
Right.
you could leave anytime you wanted. It wasn't a locked facility, and people were there
Right.
by choice, you know, and if they chose not to be there, they left. And there was rules, and obviously the biggest one, you know, drinking and using would get you kicked out, but there was other things, you know, being a dick, uh, being an asshole, not following rules,
Right.
you know, calling somebody the director a name, which we didn't do it, but there's a story behind that too, which again, I know we'll get to at some point. But so I told him, I said, you know what you got to do? Because the rule was if that happens, you come clean, you know, you talk to the director, who was Marty, and
Right.
he's going to kick the person out every time. But if you get your shit together, then usually within a few days, you got to come back and basically, I'm going to use air quotes, kind of beg for another bed. He will let you back in. Okay. So he did that. And I told him that, and he went to Marty, and Marty kicked him out. And I think it was that, man, it might have been that night. Dude went to a hotel and he ended up ODing. And I was fucking beside myself because I had barely dealt with death on a family level, let alone somebody like that. You know, I never knew anyone that OD'd. You know,
Right.
my dad told me plenty of stories about things like that, but I never knew anyone. You know, and I was just like, fuck me. But you know, maybe, and again, looking at the example of it, what did I learn? I don't want to do that, you know. And even though I wasn't fully committed to what this whole thing is, and I know I wasn't at that time, clearly,
Right.
but it had to have taught me something. And we've lost some dear friends, and we've seen people, you know, come and go out and come back in and all these different things. And, you know, if you're listening to this and you've relapsed, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. It does not have to be part of this program, but there's nothing wrong with it because it happens. The reason I say there's nothing wrong with it, I'm going to add an if to it. If you come back, you get your shit together and don't let it happen again, because you could end up there. That's a fact. You know?
Right.
So, like you said, learn from it. What can you learn from your own relapse or slip or whatever people want to call it? It is what it is, you know? So, but yeah, it got me thinking after this whole, you know, again, Taylor Hawkins thing, but I can't even tell you how many people that we've unfortunately known that have passed. And, you know, we've gone to, you remember Marty used to actually take us to funerals? You
Yeah.
remember that?
Oh yeah, I do.
That was terrible. I don't mean the bad way. I mean, but, you know, because if he knew of somebody that had been in the Keating Center or something like that and they had passed, he'd take a couple of vans full of people and like, okay, we're going to the funeral. And we're like, why are we going to? We don't know this dude. But the point was, we got to experience the grief that these folks' families were going through, and it was crushing, just crushing. You know, but again, it's all a matter of learning, you know, from all those things. And I mean, thankfully, you know, we're coming up on, you know, just we're peaking around the corner now at 12 years, and you know, life is not always easy, but man, that beats the hell out of the alternative, you know.
It does.
So, but yeah. So enough of my darkness, but yeah, that just, you know, got me thinking, and you know, talking about this stuff. I'm sure I'm not the only one that, you know, has been thinking about it. But the other thing that I wanted, one little note that I wrote down, your whole idea of not idea, but the thing that you do about changing the word God and to good. I've been doing that since you mentioned that.
Really?
and
Cool.
I never had before. So, you know, I'm seriously, thank you. It's just, it's adding a whole new thing. I'm like, ooh, good. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. That works for me. It makes things easier.
Yeah. Well, it did. So I appreciate that. So the question that I asked at the end of episode 5, and it shows up on Spotify. It doesn't show up on the other formats, I don't believe. But the question that I asked is, you know, what other topics do people want us to talk about? You know, if we don't know about it, we've experienced it, or we know somebody who has. So the response that we got on this one was repairing relationships, starting new healthy relationships, and coping skills. And the person said, keep up the great work, which I thought was kind of cool. But
Nice.
so the main thing is repairing relationships, starting new healthy relationships, and then coping skills. So I don't know, pick one of those.
Well, I mean, repairing relationships. If anybody can speak on that subject, it would be you, Grandpa.
Right. Yeah, I can.
Right. I mean, I've shared that story with many guys that are new and struggling with repairing relationships and how it works. But you know what? I think you should get into that one since someone asked about that. How you tried to force some things and that didn't work out very well. But
right.
Giving time, which is something we were definitely taught, it works. So go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
Okay. And this story is about my daughter. And the one thing, and I think, first of all, she follows me on Instagram. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started doing this, she's one of the ones that helped me set up the Instagram account, because I wanted to, at least to begin with, and I still am, trying to remain, I'm not completely open on social media. A lot of reasons behind it, which are unimportant, but I wanted to keep that level of anonymity. So I'm like, okay, I understood Facebook. I know Instagram is kind of the same, but so she helped me set up the account. Just do this, do that, do this, blah, blah, blah. And I told her what I was going to do with it, and this was the first page that I set up, not the SoberNotMature page that we're doing now. But I told her I said, two reasons I'm doing this is I said, I need an outlet. I want to have an outlet. And I use the word need because I think I needed something else.
Right.
And this has been it so far, so I said, I need an outlet to talk about recovery and share, make new connections, all those sort of things. And I told her, I said, I'm going to be telling some stories. But one other thing I told her, I said, if any of these stories, because I said, these might be things that you've heard, or these might be things, dig a little deep. I said, either let me know. I said, if it's weird, I'll delete the post. I have no issue with that. But I said, the other thing too, is I said, if you have questions or if it bothers you, I said, please let me know. Let's talk about it. And I checked into with her a little bit to start out with, and she's like, "No, it's all good." She's like, she's like, "I know you need it. I appreciate hearing some of these stories and more about it." But anyhow, so that's just a little setup to that. And she and I have talked about this story, but the reason I'm giving this long intro is if to my daughter, if you're listening, I'm going to tell this story. It ended up well. There's a happy ending, but give her an opportunity to shut this off if she wants to at this point. So all that being said, my daughter is now 34 years old. We got divorced. Her mom and I got divorced when she was 6. We split when she was 6, divorced when she was 7, roughly in that area, 7, 8 area. Her mom and I did not get along at all. And at that time, 1 year to the date of our divorce, or I'm sorry, 1 year to the date of when, a month and a half after we split, I got my one and only DUI. So clearly I was drinking inappropriately, let's say at the minimum. But I know now that I had a problem with alcohol at that time. Okay, whatever you want to call it, I had an issue with alcohol. That's number one. So I never had the best way of coping with people to begin with. I had anger issues. I was a narcissist, all these different things we talked about. So add all that to the fact of having this little girl, my daughter, in this fighting that's going on between us, and my inability to deal with my ex. So over a couple years, from the time she's about 8 to 12, things never got better with my ex, and our daughter started to get in the middle of everything, which was, I swore would never happen, but it did. So all these different things that as she's getting older, and they moved to Appleton, which is where they live, where she actually still lives, hour and a half away. And I'm driving up every other weekend, and I'm bitching and I'm moaning and all these different things, not necessarily at that point at her, but just about, I'm being wronged and all these different things. So it got down to the point where my daughter's getting older. She's got friends. She wants to see her friends. Sometimes weekends are skipped, and I'm getting all I'm getting all hurt by it, So this anger and shit that I was basically putting towards my ex now turned to her, which I know all these things now, but I didn't see it at the time.
Right.
So there was one Christmas where she wanted to come out to Christmas. She and I hadn't seen each other in a bit. I put a hard line down, and I'm like, no, we're not. I'm not taking you with me, because of all this different stuff. If you didn't want to see me then, I'm not going to do this. And as I'm saying all this stuff out loud, I'm like, oh my god, it's terrible, but this has a happy ending. Okay, so kind of fast forward through that, she and I became estranged. She had enough of me, and this was at 12 years old. 12, 13, yeah, 13, I'm sorry. So she's 13 years old, and she had enough of my shit. So done. Our relationship was done. I tried over the next handful of years, send a message here and there, do this and that to my ex, trying to get a hold of her. And this went on for, went on for a while. So this was Christmas of 2000, because it was right after my son was born. And things kind of went for another 6 months, but basically from 2000 up until 2011, I really had no communication with her. And once I got sober, which was April of 2010, I didn't get on Facebook until February of 2011. And this is important that's when I got on Facebook. But so here's the thing. I had the forethought to say that I don't want to approach her and say, hey, look at me. I'm sober now. Come love me again. I didn't want to do that again. But and the reason I explained her helping me out with the Instagram page is because at that point, I had no idea how Facebook worked. I looked her up and I sent her a friend request. And I'm like, okay, my work here is done. And I get this message back from her. I don't know if it was immediately, but it was pretty quickly. And the part that, it's a painful part, but again, the start of what ends up being good. She had said just flat out, don't try to contact me again.
Right.
I was just like, fuck. So I went to Mike, because Mike and I were living in a 3-quarter house together at that point. And I'm like, dude, look what I got. And I remember like it was yesterday. You're like, what did you do? And I'm like, I sent her a friend request. He's like, you fucking idiot. Why didn't you just send her? You can send a message along with it. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. So one of the many times that I did something without asking somebody else's advice, that might know better than me. So again, this is February 2011. So I left it. But what I did was, because these prayers that I talk about and that Mike talks about, there's a certain level or a certain set of prayers that I do every morning and every night. And I added her to my prayers. I don't remember exactly what I said but I do remember saying that, the whole, it's your will, not mine. And when I say your will, not mine, meaning my higher power, whatever's out there,
right.
So I'm telling myself that I'm like, this is in your hands now, not mine. But she became part of my prayers every morning and every night. So June of 2012, and it was the end of June. I for the life of me, I think it was June 25th, and it's I could be right or wrong on that, but I'm sitting in my bedroom, and now at this point, Mike and I we're on our own. We're living in this upper of a house, this 2-bedroom upper of a house. So I'm sitting in my room watching a movie, and I get this friend request on Facebook. So I pick up my phone and I open it up, and it's my daughter sending me a friend request. And I just remember I dropped the phone, and same thing. I run out to my friend Mike, like, dude, and I got the phone in my hand. What do I do? He's like, and he's like, accept the fucking request.
Right.
And I'm like, boop, accepted the request. So
right.
That was June of 2012. Okay. Over the next almost year, I know we didn't talk on the phone. Right. We messaged, we finally got changed phone numbers and texted, this sort of thing. And then she came out to Ohio to see the grandparents, because both of my grandparents at the time were still alive, or both of my grandmas were still alive. I think my grandpa was too. No, he wasn't at that point, but both my grandmas were. my sister was going to be out for the weekend, all this different stuff. So that was the first time I saw her. And then over the years, we've started building a relationship, but it happened slowly. And for whatever reason, and I just didn't push it, and October of 2019, she got married. I walked her down the aisle. Obviously you guys know I have a grandson now, all these different things, and the funny part, this was, you'll remember this, Mike, but it's maybe 3-4 years ago, probably at least 3-4 years ago. I was back in Cleveland and we were doing group, and you had me tell the story, that probably the brief version or whatever it was, probably not this, but, and you're like, and I remember you asking me the question in front of all these brand new guys, you're like, and what, what happened, or how long did it take? And I'm like, fucking too long, man. And you're like, no.
It took as long as it was supposed to take.
Right. And at this point, again, I'm probably, we were 7-8 years sober at the time. And I'm like, okay. Okay. I'm like, all right. So my point was saying that too, is I don't know anything. I have still no ability to handle some of these things, but the point is, my daughter and I, obviously I love her to death. She's married now. I love my son-in-law. He's a wonderful human being. They're beautiful together. There's a grandson and all these different things. But the whole point with this is that I blew up that relationship. I blew it up, and it was a 13-year-old little girl that didn't deserve the asshole that I was at the time. And then, it took, I'm not going to say it's going to take everyone 12 years. I'm not going to say it's going to happen in 12 years,
right.
To Mike's your exact words, it happened when it was supposed to, and it took as long as it was supposed to, which is a terrible thing to deal with. I'm so impatient. I'm so impatient, and it's almost like I have this childish or childlike impatience. Like, yeah, I want it now. Are we there yet? Yeah. But yeah, that's probably, as far as relationships, and I've repaired, thankfully, a lot of relationships, but she's the big one, man, so,
right.
So yeah. So Kimberly, I love you. And, obviously happier than hell that the things are as they are. So there we go. So that's my story. If and again, the biggest thing, the only piece of advice that I can give everyone is exactly what Mike tried to drill into my head was, we've got and it's one of the goofy recovery sayings, but give time, but it's true.
It's funny on that note. A guy led at my home group, I don't know, about a month or so ago, and he was talking about, we need to work on whatever problems we need to work on. And I'm paraphrasing big time here, but he said, we want to take a chainsaw to it. And unfortunately, the tools we've been given are butter knives. We keep working at it. It will work and we will get to where we need to be, but we're using this butter knife when we want to use a chainsaw. And that kind of encapsulates what Bill was just talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly, I've never heard that before, but
I hadn't either.
That's just so. In other words, we're hopefully still teachable, as they say, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's tough, man, because and there was the individual that, Mike, you and I had talked about, the person that's helped me on Instagram, that lives out in California. She
right.
actually referred somebody to me the other day. I think it was earlier this week. And it was a gentleman that was, struggling with that sort of thing, about a failed relationship and things that he had done while he was drinking. And I think he's been sober now for 6-7 months, whatever it was. But she's like, hey, do you mind, messaging him? And I'm like, do I mind? I'm like, not at all.
Right.
So again, these back and forth conversations, and I was trying to figure out what his goal was. And I think I knew what his goal was. He wanted everything fixed. But again, the story that I just told, I was thinking about that, with everything we were talking about. So, I gave him a little bit of advice, whether it'll work or not. But the main thing I said, and I talked about that, sometimes these things take time. And I said, people need to see that that we're changing, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced even to this day that there's got to be people in our lives that still look at just a little bit out of the corner of the eye, like, are these guys okay? Is everything okay?
Mm-hmm. All right.
When
I
maybe
would hope so. I mean, because well, in my case, I mean, I was complete dick for 40 some years, so you do that balance on that scale, the 12 years versus the 42,
right,
yeah, they're still gonna, yes, I have changed, hopefully, and my actions are different than they used to be, but yeah, you you never know. They got to look at us and go, waiting for that shoe to drop, but
right.
I by working this program, I'm hanging on to that shoe. It hasn't hit the floor yet.
Hanging on to that shoe, I like that.
Right. That may be the title of this episode.
Hanging on to the shoe.
Yeah.
Hanging on to that shoe. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. What do I care? What do I care? That's the. All right, so that just reminded me of something too. So the obviously my daughter was a big relationship that I repaired, and
Mm-hmm.
my son's mom was another one, and
Mm-hmm.
she got the worst of me because it was towards the end,
Right.
and she and I'll say it again. This has a happy ending. She and I get along really well. She's remarried. I get along well with her, with her new husband. Mike and I just stopped over there when
Yep.
he was here, and he's met them before. We hung out for what? We were there for probably a half hour shooting the shit
Oh
about
yeah.
nothing.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm welcome into their home. We've done holidays together. We've done birthdays together, all these different things. But it was, and I'll never forget this. It was probably same thing, 5, 6, maybe even 7 years ago. Um, Dawn and I, that's my ex. She and I used to take our son to lunch every once in a while because helped to raise, him after more so certainly after I got sober, but
Mm-hmm.
taking him to lunch every once in a while. So I had stopped over there. We are going to go to lunch, and she's like, where do you want to go? And I mean, Derek's saying one thing, I'm saying the other thing, and then we're like, this, that, and the other. And then she's like, well, why don't we go to Chili's? She says at least one of us can have a margarita, you know, and she's not. She has no alcohol issues in her life. Okay, it's just she's one of those normal people that can have a margarita for lunch and not have a problem. So
Weirdo.
I know, yeah, fucking weirdo, right? So my son's a minor. I'm probably 5 years sober, whatever it is, and I'm like, I don't care. And then so we're walking out of the house, and she's walking in front of me, and I said, here's the other thing. I said, I've been sober for 5 years. Maybe I can have a margarita too. I said, I'm sure I'll be fine. And for everyone, I'm just fucking around being me because that's what I do.
Right.
And so she's walking in front of me. She stops, turns around, and she's probably 5'6", 5'7",
Mm-hmm.
finger out, pointing in my face, and then she says, "If you do, I will punch you in the fucking face." and And I started laughing, and she's like, "I'm fucking serious." I'm like, "I know." I said, "That's why I'm laughing, because
Right.
I said, thank you." She's like, "Thank you." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I appreciate the fact that you care," whatever I said. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the greatest things she ever said to me, one of the absolute wonderful thing, and I couldn't stop laughing about it. And seriously, that was probably 6, 7 years ago. But it's things like that and that's the example of there's got to be people out there that still. And it offended me for a little while when I was 3, 4 years sober, probably. That's certainly one or two. It's like, whoa, I've been sober. Why would you even question me? You
Right.
know, I mean, why wouldn't they, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, there's no reason why people shouldn't question
Right.
us. So what about building a healthy relationship? Because that's the other kind of the next in line there. So you're sober, you get to the point where you've hopefully, the things that you can, you've repaired, and fixed the
Mm-hmm.
things that you can. So what now? Now as a sober person, how do you build a new healthy relationship? And I'm going to ask you, because I have not had a solid relationship since I've been sober.
Right.
I'm not saying they've all been unhealthy, but I've had a couple of unhealthy situations, but
Mm-hmm.
out of
Well,
out of the out of the
I've
two
had
of
both.
us, I mean, yeah, okay, well, yeah, actually, yeah, you have. But yeah,
I
so out of the
have.
two of us, I'm perpetually single, I think, but it's okay. I'm enjoying myself. So,
Right.
but
Right.
so yeah,
Well,
you've had
okay.
both.
The suggestion that we're given is you wait a year until you get into a new relationship, right? I waited 5. I was ready in about 3, but and yeah, I made a lot of mistakes in the first one. Um, and I take responsibility for the things. There were certainly problems on the other side of that relationship, but that doesn't matter. Part of it was I dug into my past. Um, I online it was a mutual friend of a friend of a friend, and she was living in California, and we went back and forth for about a year. And she ended up moving to Cleveland and moving in with me, and it was a nightmare. Um, but thankfully I had the foundation and the tools and everything that I needed that I got through this bad situation. It sort of resolved itself. She decided that living with a sober person isn't what she wanted, and she left, and that's good.
Right.
Um, and I went to my support group, because I was a bit torn up over it, and my sponsor at the time said, you need to get back out there. Don't sit around and mope. Don't sit there and focus on yourself. Get out there and get back out there. So I did. I started swiping on Tinder.
This is just for everyone. Please listen to this. This is the greatest story ever. It just is.
Yeah, and so I swiped right or whatever it is, and met this wonderful woman who I've been with now for it'll be 6 years in August, and she's normie, and I do what I'm supposed to do. I do the next right thing. I'm not a dick to her. We don't yell at each other. We never have. It hasn't always been easy and smooth. But we work things out. We talk. I again use the tools that this program has given me. How to treat other people. The golden rule that I should have learned years and years ago. Treat somebody the way you want to be treated, and it works out. Imagine that.
Right.
We're happy and we're healthy. I think a big part of it is we don't live together. She would like to, but I know myself enough now by being involved in this program that I know that I'm not ready for that yet. A big part of working this program for me is taking care of myself, being responsible, because for most of my life, I was a child and I expected the world to take care of me. So it's very important for me now to take care of myself, pay my bills, maintain my own household. These are important things to me. Possibly, and I tell her this because again, we talk, we're open. Possibly in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I'll be ready to. But right now, I'm not, and thankfully, she's okay with that. But again, this is just I do be a good boy, treat people like I want to be treated.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that yeah, I mean, again, like you said, imagine that. Things go back to just the basics of everything that we were taught, that be a good boy, and do the next right thing. And it translates into every part of our lives. Now, on top of that, I'm only going to add one more thing, is that she is deeply embedded with our group, and I'll say quote unquote our people and everything like that. She's involved in all the events and friends with everyone, and even though again, like the term normie and all that stuff comes up, and you brought that up and we brought that up, but she's one of the people, so and I think that helps because and that's the one thing with, and I joke about, being perpetually single. My situation has been either, I start seeing somebody or hanging out with somebody, and I mean, they're cool on most levels, but not that next level, or, so maybe I'm not into that, or it's been the other way around where I'm like, we start hanging out and then I'm like, oh, this person's like everything I ever wanted. Give me more now. And the other person's not into it. But all those things that's the way it should be, And the point with this whole thing. So maybe, quote unquote, normal people don't have to rebuild relationships like we did that we just burnt down. But everyone's got to be everyone should, as a goal, be able to start healthy relationships, but the other thing too is that, and you and I had talked about this, and I just figured this out in the last few years, is that I can actually love people on different levels, which was, it was mind blowing to me that just because I'm involved with somebody doesn't mean I have to go head over heels, and I don't need to go all in. There's nothing wrong with having a good relationship with somebody of the opposite sex, as long as everyone's on the same page, right? So, and you talked about that completely, talking about it, being open, being honest, and setting those expectations, which I try to do. It doesn't always work, but the only thing that I can say, and I say this for myself because it's important to me, is that anyone that I've been involved with since I've been sober, even though those relationships or those situations didn't work out, if I saw any one of those individuals on the street today, I would have no issue with it. There wouldn't be any animosity. There wouldn't be any problems. There still might be, who knows? There might be some hurt feelings on either end, but I'm not ashamed of. I wouldn't try to avoid that person, I guess, is my main point. I say sometimes, and some of them I'm still friends with. There's people that I've been either involved with, in for a longer period of time, or just had I don't even want to say brief encounters because that sounds like a hookup thing, and that's not me. So I don't mean that, but I mean shorter versions of what I'm talking about versus maybe, over months or stuff like that. Regardless of the amount of time, it's just that enjoying that time and in realizing that, hey, it is what it is. It didn't work out, So friends with some of the folks, maybe not friends, but I think I could still have those conversations, or, at least face those people and not feel like, oh God, there's
yeah. Right. Well, again, we conduct ourselves the way we're supposed to, and we don't have the shame anymore. It's one of the gifts of this program.
Right.
Exactly. Even if things don't work out the way we wanted them to, we conducted ourselves the way we're supposed to, and there's no guilt.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, with the loving people on different levels too. I mean, there's people that I have in my life that I truly love, but it's not a romantic love. I mean, I figured out that it's the love that you can have for a child or a grandchild or a mom or a sister or you.
Right.
I mean, as another male in my life, and we made it pretty clear. I mean, we say it all the time. I do love you, but it's on there. There's a level for it, and I've got female friends, buddy. That's what I was looking for.
I know.
Thank you, man. I matter.
Yes, you do.
But I mean, there's women in my life too that I care about deeply, and that I could say that I love, but I wasn't in love with them, and I've decided. Which I think is important, maybe for everyone, but for me, I decided that I know what it's like. I know what it feels like to be in love, and if I'm not at that point, I'm not going to be with somebody just to be with somebody, and I do that for myself, and I think that's fair. It's unfair for another person if you're just being like, yeah, I'm never going to do anything. You don't know where my mind's at, but I'm just going to hang out with you and basically take your time. Stealing back to Larry. I don't want to steal people's time anymore.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's and you and I talk about that too. The thing that I think is so funny with the swiping, it's just that, yeah, you guys joke about that all the time. The
Hmm.
fact that you guys met on Tinder, which I think is wonderful, because most people don't have the greatest of stories. But I've met people on dating apps. I've met people
Hmm.
on sober dating apps and regular dating apps. And actually everyone, well, with the exception of one person, everyone that I've been talking about, kind of in my head with all this stuff, maybe two people I haven't met on dating apps, but the rest of them are people I've met through, technology, and that's kind of
Right.
what it is these days. It's
Yeah.
all of it's technology based. So why not?
Hmm.
So the last thing on this, the question that that this gentleman or individual, I don't know if it's gentleman or not, submitted was coping skills, and I mean, I there was no other explanation of what it meant by coping skills, but I mean, I'm sure you have ideas and I have ideas. But so being sober, and what are your basic coping skills, like life coping skills?
um,
It's a loaded question, right?
It is. It is. Again, I'm still working on it, man. Coming up on a dozen years sober. There are things that I don't do well, that I don't cope with all that wonderfully. But I, I, again, the basics of the program, faith that things are going to work out. That I basically don't have any powerless over people, places, and things. The only thing I have control over are my reactions. Um, yeah, and again, the faith that, like in the promises, financial insecurity. I could sit and worry about money. I sometimes don't always have all the money that I want, but I always have the money I need.
Right.
That again, even this atheist has faith that things are going to work out if I do the next right thing. That's basic. You want to talk about coping skills that I never had before? That's it. I do the next right thing, things will work out. That's my coping skill.
Right. And I mean, and that's the thing too, that, and that's the biggest thing. And the story about my daughter, and whether you're trying to get a new job or waiting for some event to happen or thing to happen,
Mm-hmm.
that's throwing it up in something else's hands, and
Mm-hmm.
having that. And some people call it blind faith. And if it's blind
Right.
faith, why the fuck not? I mean, I don't need to know. And if
Mm.
I know, I'm going to stress over it. And one of the things too is that, so I don't even know if you and I talked about this, but so March 14th, the day before, actually, my grandson was born. That was the anniversary of my dad's death, and I
Mm-hmm.
posted on this about Instagram, and he died 33 days before I went into detox, and that was his death was the end of my drinking and the beginning of this journey. And so it's a weird thing. It hit on so many levels. It's almost ridiculous. But
Mm-hmm.
every year as it comes around, I know it's coming around, and I remember the date. And he's another one that's he's in my prayers every day, along with my stepdad. But I mean, I felt that I have dealt with that grief, over the last 12 years. Well, this
Mm-hmm.
year, man, somebody said, "Fuck you, we're gonna make you feel, man,"
Mm.
and it was really weird. So coming up on it, so I mean, other things were going on. The the my son's due date was going to be on the 15th. My daughter's going in for this procedure. Work is crazy. It's life stuff going on, but I got all these things on my mind, right? And up until that the Sunday, because his anniversary, the 14th was on a Monday, a thing popped up on Facebook that I had posted like the day prior at his 1 year anniversary, and I was like, holy shit, I almost forgot about this. Which part of me is kind of like, I'm like, I felt bad, but then the other part was like, oh, maybe I've come to grips with this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
healed. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where the the nut punch came in the next day. I was in I'm serious, man. I was in just a I couldn't deal with myself. I was in the worst mood ever. I was just pissed off. I was anxious. I felt like I was going to cry. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what the fuck, man? And I still, and this has been, so that's March 14th. And, you know, I mean, so a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago now,
Right.
I have no idea why that hit me so hard, but I'll figure it out at some point. And I won't even say figuring out's the wrong way to put it. It will get resolved, or something will become clear why that hit me so hard.
Right.
But the whole point is that what I did that day, and I was at work and I was kind of snippy about something to one of the other managers, and she made a point about it. She's like, "You got to relax, man." And I told her, I'm like, you know what? I said, procedure tomorrow. I said, today's the anniversary of my dad's death. I said, I don't know if that's it, but I said, I'm in, you know, kind of just a fucked up mood and I can't figure it out. And she's like, oh, okay, that's cool. You know, but I mean, she called me on my shit, you know, which is perfect, because I need people to do that. But then when I got home that night, I posted about it on Instagram. So I'm like, that helps me sometimes when I write about shit, you know? So if I don't talk to somebody, I write about it. So I did that. And then at that point, I'm like, that helped, but I'm still kind of fucked up the head. So you know what I did? I went to bed. So, and sometimes, you know, when it comes to coping skills, talk to somebody, write about it, read a book, watch some mindless TV, take a walk, exercise, whatever will get you out of your head as a coping skill, you know? And in my opinion, for years has been literally, and I joke about it, but it's like, if all else fails, man, I go to bed, because usually in 99% of the cases, I wake up in the morning, you know, and my head is now popped out of my ass and I'm better. You know, I may not be perfect, but I'm better, you know? So, but yeah, I mean, everything you said, and just on top of that, hey, have an outlet. You got to have some sort of, it doesn't even have to be anything special. People think they have to have this magical outlet that I've got to do this. No, just do something other than being inside your head, and something other than drinking or using, you know? So, if we, and I say collectively, we can do that, then we got a chance, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Get it out. Focus. Stop focusing on yourself is really the basic, you know, stop focusing on yourself.
Isn't that I think that's in that large book that we read, to get out of oneself, or take yourself out of yourself, or getting yourself, I don't know.
Somewhere in
it
there.
is.
I've read it somewhere.
I think read it, heard it, stole it, one way or the other.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so once again, we're at almost 57 minutes of rambling. So any other thoughts on, again, repairing, starting relationships, coping skills, anything else we talked about? Any kind of wrap up thoughts? Or
no, not really, man. I think we covered it. You know, if I got nothing else.
The only thing in here, this is going to shock me if I get a different answer. Did you write down your little out statement?
Hell no.
Good. That's what I expected. So at this point, let's make a pact or a promise. Don't ever write the son of a bitch down. I just want you to wing it every week, because it makes it more fun. So, so do your wrap up, wing it statement.
All right, winging it up. Thank you for joining us here at Sober Not Mature. You know what? Stay sober another week. Don't hurt the people around you. If you stay sober another week, you'll have a chance. And everybody, fuck off.
Yeah, fuck off back at you. All right, brother. I love you.
All right. I love you too, man. We'll see y'all next week.
All right. Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.
As always, thank you for listening to another episode of Sober Not Mature. To access all of our content and interact with us, please visit our website, SoberNotMature.com. Thank you again for listening, and we will talk to you soon.